states think twice and thrice before attacking in the future. That is, the Iranians are looking forward, potentiality of another attack, continuous threats against the country needs to stop. And the way to go about it is to exact more pain. That's why yesterday President Trump was talking about Iranians reaching out to him to talk, which is suggesting that he wants to talk to them. But at the same, I mean, an hour or two later, the head of the Supreme National Security Council said, no, we're not talking, we're not going to talk.
So, by the way, here, one thing that I see that doesn't seem so coherent to me, I do not know whether it's a deliberate strategy or it is actually the desynchronization of the system. Because, so just yesterday, twice, the foreign minister, 𝗬𝗧𝗶𝗫, said that if the aggression stops, so Iran is ready for talks. And then today, the secretary of the National Supreme Security Council, Amir al-Jani, said that Iran is not going to talk. And while that's happening, IRGC is waging the war over the civilian infrastructure, energy infrastructure in the region. So is this a strategy, or we are simply seeing a desynchronization of the system in Iran after the country's leader being taken out of the picture?
Rasul, I'm sorry to do this to you and to Hassan. We're going to have to leave that question pending. I think that's a very good place to end this broadcast for now. We're going to have to take the shortest of breaks. I do understand the question you're asking. It is one that we're going to explore in interviews going forward. Hassan Ahmadian, thank you very much for joining us from Tehran this hour. Rasul Sardar, thank you very much for your expertise. You were in Iran until very recently. You know the lay of the land there. We appreciate it. And that's going to be it from me, 𝗧𝗶𝗫. My colleague Adrian Filligan will be back with you in just a moment. Before that, from propping up Iran's last Shah to killing the supreme leader, the U.S. has a long history of interference with Tehran's affairs. 𝗬𝗏𝗲's 𝗬𝗏𝗲 takes a look at how the two nations have grown from being allies a long time ago to adversaries today.
The Shah of Persia has been paying a state visit to President Truman.
For more than 80 years, U.S. presidents have put an unusual focus on Iran. Beginning in World War II, Britain and the United States used Iran to funnel weapons to help Russia fight Nazi Germany. Successive presidents hosting, supporting, and applauding the Shah, Mohammad Pahlavi. In 1952, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower authorized Operation Ajax, giving the CIA authority to launch a coup along with the British to restore the Shah to power. After the Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, sought to nationalize the country's oil industry. President Eisenhower then sought to bolster the Shah with the Atoms for Peace program in 1957, giving Iran highly enriched uranium and training its scientists in hopes that it would encourage civilian use and not lead to building a nuclear weapon.
Our defense, therefore, will be stronger if, under appropriate security safeguards, we share with our allies certain knowledge of the tactical use of our nuclear weapons.
President John F. Kennedy welcomed the Shah to Washington. President Richard Nixon and President Jimmy Carter even visited Tehran.
Iran, because of the great leadership of the Shah, is an island of stability.
A show of U.S. support for the increasingly authoritarian Shah, who in 1979 fled the country, and Ayatollah Khomeini took power of the newly named Islamic Republic of Iran. In November 1979, when President Carter allowed the Shah to come to the U.S. for medical treatment, students took over the U.S. Embassy, taking 52 Americans hostage. That and a botched rescue all but assured Carter's defeat to Ronald Reagan. The hostages were released as soon as he took office. During President Reagan's time in office, the U.S. secretly supported Iraq in its war with Iran, providing intelligence and economic aid to the Iraqi military. In 1983, the U.S. blamed 𝗧𝗏𝗲, backed by Iran, for bombing the Marine barracks in Beirut, killing 241 Marines. It was later uncovered that the Reagan administration was also secretly selling weapons to Iran in order to fund rebels in Nicaragua. And in 1988, tensions increased when the U.S. Navy accidentally shot down an Iranian passenger jet, killing the 290 people on board. Modern presidents continue to try to pressure Iran with increasing sanctions, but after the September 11th attacks, Then President George W. Bush put Iran high on the nation's enemies list, including it along with North Korea and Iraq in the axis of evil.
Iran aggressively pursues these weapons and exports terror, while an unelected few repress the Iranian people's hope for freedom.
President Barack Obama took a different approach, making an agreement with Iran along with other world powers to limit Iran's nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief. A deal President Donald Trump ripped up in his first term, also launching a strike in Iraq to kill Qasem Soleimani, the leader of Iran's Quds Force. Now in his second term, launching military strikes for a second time, openly calling for regime change, a new and deadly chapter in a long history of U.S. involvement in Iran. 𝗏𝗏, Al Jazeera, Washington.
It is 1500 hours GMT, 6 o'clock in Doha, 6:30 in Tehran. This is Al Jazeera, with continuing coverage of the conflict between the US, Israel and Iran, which is spreading fast across the region. I'm Adrian Finnegan. The latest developments this hour. Tehran has targeted energy infrastructure in Gulf states in a serious escalation that threatens global energy supplies. Qatar's state-owned petroleum company has halted all production of liquefied natural gas, LNG, after attacks on 2 of its facilities. The country shares the world's largest natural gas reserve with Iran. Across the border in Saudi Arabia, the kingdom has shut its biggest domestic oil refinery as a precautionary measure. 2 drones targeted Aramco's Ras Tanura facility but were intercepted. Iran has targeted sites across Israel. The Israeli military says that missiles were intercepted above West Jerusalem, Tel Aviv and Eilat. At least 10 people have been killed since Saturday. Iran has also targeted territory beyond the Gulf in Israel. Cyprus has confirmed that the UK airbase on the island sustained minor damage in an Iranian drone strike overnight. Israel has launched new strikes on the Lebanese capital Beirut. It says they're in response to the rockets and drones that Hezbollah fired into Israel earlier on Monday. At least 31 people have been killed in the Israeli attacks, one of them a senior Hezbollah official. Prime Minister Assalamu says that he's banned all Hezbollah military and security activities. The group says its attack is in response to the assassination of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. In Iran, meanwhile, Israeli strikes have targeted the capital Tehran. The Red Crescent says that more than 130 cities have come under fire in 3 days. It comes as the U.S. Defense Secretary promised the joint military operation will not become an endless war. Al Jazeera is live in New York, Washington, Ramallah, Beirut and Doha. But first, let's take you to Iran's capital, Tehran. Al Jazeera's Mohammed Val has the latest developments from there. Mohammed, the US and Israel say they're continuing to strike Iran. What's the latest?
Which is the case, Adrian. Just a few minutes ago, we have reports coming from the city of Isfahan about new strikes targeting the nuclear sites or next to the nuclear sites of Isfahan. That's one of the rare moments during this war when we have such reports with such precision from the Iranian sources talking about a specific target. So Isfahan, the nuclear sites now, around them or at them exactly, that's the latest target to be hit just minutes ago. Across the country, cities have been also targeted during the last 24 hours, including Kharaj, Arak, Nahawand, many other cities, Ahwaz, Bushehr, Kharaj. I can't count it. It's continuous, and here in Tehran in particular, because we are witnessing this since midnight, there has been no let-up in airstrikes targeting several locations. We can see smoke, plumes of smoke rising across the capital. We don't have really very specific information about the targets, but they are widespread. And that's in reflection of what the Israelis have said. They have said they are widening this campaign, and they are targeting facilities that belong to the military, to security forces, police stations, and so on. And that is exactly what happened here. Also, the authorities talking about death toll among civilians. The Ministry of Education has given the death toll of 175 students, most of them at that city, at that school in Minab, in 𝗬𝗏 But also there are reports here and there about dozens of people being killed, either in the city of Tehran or outside it. Hospitals have been targeted, police stations, as I said, and other facilities that are not clearly military. And that's the fear here in Tehran, that the war is going to punish civilians, even though there is that claim by the Americans that this war is, among other goals, meant to help them liberate themselves from the current government.
Mohammed Val in Tehran. Let's take you now to Beirut, the Lebanese capital. 𝗧𝗶𝗶 is there. Israel has launched new strikes on the Lebanese capital today. In response, it says, to rockets and drones that Hezbollah fired into Israel earlier on Monday. What's the latest say?
Well, Israel continuing to strike targets in Beirut's southern suburbs, just behind me, that cluster of neighborhoods. They've been targeting it since the early hours of the morning. There have been airstrikes in the south of the country as well as in the east, in the 𝗏𝗏. More than 30 people reportedly killed. Israel is promising to unleash basically hell on Hezbollah. We've heard commanders threaten that Hezbollah is going to pay a heavy price. They said that they've launched this offensive humanitarian crisis, a mass displacement crisis, because the Israeli army has issued forced evacuation orders from its arms. Now, the Israeli army saying they're doing this because Hezbollah fired rockets across the border in the early hours of the morning in retaliation for the killing of the late Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. Now, Hezbollah is not only under pressure from Israel, Hezbollah is under pressure from the Lebanese government, which has been trying to keep Lebanon out of the regional crisis. The Lebanese government taking an unprecedented decision by banning Hezbollah's military and intelligence activities, basically outlawing or making Hezbollah's military wing illegal.
𝗬𝗏 reporting live from Beirut. Let's take you now to Doha. 𝗬𝗏 is there. Qatar's state-owned petroleum company halted all production of liquefied natural gas today, after 2 of its facilities came under attack. What do we know?
Well, this is a serious...
Prices, of course, are going to go up when you see a disruption in the supply chain, like we're seeing right now. 1/5 of all oil consumed in the world comes through the Strait of Hormuz. That transportation location is now under threat. We're seeing the benchmark for stocks in oil, the Brent crude oil stock, up nearly 8%, almost $80 a barrel now. And the concern is that that could reach $100 a barrel if this continues. We're seeing OPEC countries rally to try to prevent that from happening. They're vowing to produce 200,000 more barrels a day to offset the rising prices. But if they can't deliver that oil, then prices are likely to rise, and that's the concern that we're seeing from analysts. And this is a concern for the broader market as well, because we've already seen a country that's struggling with rising prices and affordability concerns. If there are transportation and supply chain issues, we're already having the impact of tariffs here in the United States. Rising oil prices could affect other goods and services as well as the financial industry. So that's why we're seeing not a dramatic decrease in the market today, but certainly down less than 1% in all of the major stock indexes here, as volatility, nervousness permeate the trading floor today.
Kristen Salumi reporting live from the New York Stock Exchange. Many thanks, Kristen. Well, the U.S. has changed its tone on the military operation in Iran. President Donald Trump had previously spoken in favor of regime change, but earlier on Monday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said that isn't the plan.
This is not a so-called regime change war, but the regime sure did change, and the world is better off for it. We hope the Iranian people take advantage of this incredible opportunity. President Trump has been clear, now is your time. To Iranian security forces, choose wisely. President Trump has also been clear about your fate in either direction. To the media outlets and political left screaming endless wars, stop. This is not Iraq.
Of accusations against Iran and their behavior, particularly against Americans and American targets since 1979. He said, as you said, this isn't a war about regime change. But yet again, there's a real lack of detail of how they expect the Iranian people to rise up. We saw widespread protests in the last few weeks, and that ended in the death of thousands of people on the street, and reports coming out of Iran that protests against the current regime have been met with similar levels of force. 𝗬𝗍𝗄𝗏 wouldn't be drawn on the detail of how long this operation might last. You would expect that. He was fairly critical of a reporter who suggested 4 weeks. That was Donald Trump's own figure. While Trump says he's willing to speak to the Iranians sometime in the next couple of days, he did say that this operation could last for 4 weeks. It's really in his gift. He will decide, based on operational requirements, how long it can continue. What is interesting is that when Donald Trump said he would speak to members of the Iranians, he really has no idea who would be on the other end of the phone. Because at the moment, of course, the top layer has been removed and they're still working through who would take over as supreme leader. Donald Trump wants to see some level of discussion.